Namaskar and good morning. I'm Art for Art's sake and I have come up here with a new video today. No doubt, and of course this video is again a compilation of literature and art, and also a birthday video. My dear audiences, you must be thinking, why do I make such birthday videos? It is just because I want to pay a very formal tribute to my favorite authors and literature and my favorite artists. So that's why I make such birthday videos. So today, let us see the video and please give it a guess that whose birthday it is, as it is my favorite question. I ask you all that whose birthday it is today. So my dear audiences, as you have seen the line sketch, you must be definitely knowing whose birthday it is today. And for the ones who doesn't know whose birthday it is today, let me tell you that it is none other than the famous Arthur Asher Miller. Now, as I continue my sketch, I would like to add another question. And hear this question well, properly. So my question is that which is your favorite play of Arthur Miller? So by the end of my video, I'm going to tell you my favorite play of Arthur Miller, as well as you can comment down in the inbox of the play you like. So, my dear literary audiences, let's start the informative video. Arthur Asher Miller was born in Harlem, New York on October 17, 1915 to an immigrant family of Polish and Jewish descent. His father, Isidore, owned a successful coat and manufacturing business, and his mother, Augusta, to whom he was closer, was an educator and an avid reader of novels. The affluent Miller family lost almost everything in the Wall Street crash of 1929 and had to move from Manhattan to Flatbush, Brooklyn. After graduating high school, Miller worked a few odd jobs to save money to attend the University of Michigan. While in college, he wrote for the student paper and completed his first play, No Villain, for which he won the school's Avery Hopwood Award. He also took courses with playwright and Professor Kenneth Rowe. Inspired by Rowe's approach, Miller moved back east to begin his career as a playwright. Miller's career got off to a rocky start. His 1944 Broadway debut, The Man Who Had All the Luck, garnered a fate that was the antithesis of its title, closing after 4 performances with a stack of woeful reviews. Focus, Miller's novel about anti-Semitism, was published a year later. His next play, All My Sons, was a hit in 1947, running for almost a full year on Broadway and earning Miller his first Tony Award for Best Author. Working in a small studio that he built in Roxbury, Connecticut, Miller wrote the first act of Death of a Salesman in less than a day. The play, directed by Elia Kazan, opened on February 10, 1949 at the Moscow Theater and was adored by nearly everyone, becoming an iconic stage work. The drama follows the travails of Willie Loman, an aging Brooklyn salesman whose career is in decline and who finds the values that he so doggedly pursued have become his undoing. Salesman won Miller the highest accolades in the theater world: the Pulitzer Prize, the New York Drama Critics Circle Award, and the Tony for Best Play. The work, in fact, swept all of the 6 Tony categories in which it was nominated, including for Best Direction and Best Author. In 1956, Miller divorced his first wife, Mary Slattery, his former college sweetheart, with whom he had 2 children, Jane Ellen and Robert. Less than a month later, Miller married actress and the Bollywood sex symbol, Marilyn Monroe, whom he'd first met in 1951 at a Hollywood party. At the time, Monroe was dating Kazan, who had directed Miller's All My Sons and Death of a Salesman. When Kazan asked Miller to keep Monroe company while he dated another actress, Miller and Monroe struck up a friendship that turned into a romance. Author Norman Mailer called their marriage the union of the great American brain and the great American body. Miller and Monroe's high-profile marriage placed the playwright in the Hollywood spotlight. At the time of the marriage, he told the press that Monroe would curtail her movie career for the full-time job of being his wife. Later, in 1956, the House UN American Activities Committee, HUAC, refused to renew Miller's passport and called him to appear before the committee. His 1953 play, the Tony Award-winning The Crucible, a dramatization of the Salem witch trials of 1692 and an allegory about McCarthyism, was believed to be one of the reasons why Miller came under the committee's scrutiny. Miller refused to comply with the committee's demands to out people who had been active in certain political activities and was thus cited in contempt of Congress. In 1957, Brooks Atkinson wrote about Miller's stand against HUAC. He refused to be an informer. He refused to turn his private consigns over to administration by the state. He has accordingly been found in contempt of Congress. That is the measure of the man who has written these high-minded plays. The contempt ruling was overturned 2 years later. Miller and Monroe were married for 5 years. During that time, Monroe struggled with personal troubles, and also she was addicted to drugs. Miller barely wrote during the time, except for penning the screenplay of The Misfits as a gift for Monroe, the 1961 film directed by John Huston, which was starred by Monroe. Around the same time as The Misfits' release, Monroe and Miller were divorced. Monroe died the following year, and Miller's controversial 1964 drama, After the Fall, was believed to have been partially inspired by the relationship. Miller was criticized for capitalizing on his marriage to Monroe so soon after her death, although the playwright denied this. Miller responded to his critics by saying, "The play is a work of fiction. No one is reported in this play. The characters are created as they are in any other play in order to develop a coherent theme, which in this case concerns the nature of human insight, of self-destructiveness and violence toward others." In 1962, Miller married Austrian-born photographer Inge Morath. The couple had 2 children, Rebecca and Daniel. Miller insisted that the son Daniel, who was born with Down syndrome, be excluded from the family's personal life. The infant was institutionalized, and Morath reportedly tried to bring him home as a toddler, but to no avail. Years later, actor Daniel Day-Lewis, who married Miller's daughter Rebecca, visited his wife's brother frequently. Day-Lewis eventually persuaded Miller to make further contact with his adult son, who had been able to establish a happy life with outside support. Daniel's existence was unknown to most of the public until after Miller's death. In his later career, Miller continued to explore societal and personal issues that probed the American psyche. Though critical and commercial responses to the work didn't garner the acclaim of his earlier productions, he also wrote the 1980 TV movie Playing for Time and an adaptation for the theater. The project was based on the autobiography of a Fenelon, who was a member of an all-women's orchestra that was imprisoned at the Auschwitz death campus during the Holocaust. The film courted controversy from Jewish organizations and Fenelon herself for its casting of Vanessa Redgrave, who had criticized Zionism and supported Palestinian organizations. In addition to his plays, Miller collaborated with Murat on books including In the Country and Salesman in Beijing. In 1987, Miller published his autobiography, Time Bends a Life. In his autobiography, he wrote that when he was young, he imagined that with the possible exception of a doctor saving a life, writing a worthy play was the most important thing a human being could do. Miller's plays have become American classics that continue to speak to new generations of audiences. Death of a Salesman has had numerous screen adaptations, including a 1985 TV version that starred Dustin Hoffman. In 1996, a film adaptation of the Crucible hit theaters, starring Winona Ryder, Joan Allen, and Day-Lewis, Miller penned the screenplay, which earned him the sole Academy Award nomination of his career. In 2002, Miller's third wife, Murat, died. He soon was engaged to 34-year-old minimalist painter Agnes Barley, but fell into ill health before they could walk down the aisle. On February 10, 2005, the 56th anniversary of Death of a Salesman Broadway debut, Miller died of heart failure at his home in Roxbury, Connecticut, surrounded by Barley, family and friends. He was 89 years old. Hereby to conclude, I will greet Arthur Miller a very happy birthday. And as per my previous question, I had asked at the beginning of the video that which is your favorite play of Arthur Miller? So my audience is, I am going to answer you that question. And you can answer your question, you can answer your kind of answer in my comment box. My answer to this question is that my favorite play of Arthur Miller is The Crucible. I love Crucible for a different reason. The Crucible is the story of the Salem witch trials. You can have a good reading about the play, and I love this play because of the imperfect protagonist, that is John Proctor. No doubt, this is the most perfect portrayal of Miller as a best hero. And by my video, you can sum it up that I have not only painted Miller, but side by side, I have also painted John Proctor and also written his famous dialogue about his name. I will suggest my audiences to read this play definitely. Now it is time to bid you farewell and see you at my next video. Take care. Good day.